You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, episode 103.
The chief of police in the town over from where I live was shot in an awful situation on call, and 3 other officers were shot and wounded. And I wanted to raise money for the Officer Down Memorial organization, and decided that running a marathon and raising funds for that organization, that was my motivation.
Welcome to Change Your POV Podcast, helping you navigate transitions in your life, like entering and exiting college or the military, changing jobs or careers, and providing you with the coaching and mentorship needed to help you advance in your personal or professional life. Sometimes all you need is to change your point of view. Now, here's your host, Eddie Lazary.
Folks, welcome to Change Your POV Podcast. I am your host, Eddie Lazary, and Bennett is MIA tonight, and he may or may not be joining us. But I've got a special guest on here, Julie Benson. Before we get into her incredible story, I would like to say thank you to this week's sponsor, Mountain Up, or 10th Mountain Apparel. 10th Mountain Apparel, or Mountain Up, is a military brand inspired by the power and lifestyle of the 10th Mountain Division, all the way from World War II to modern times. And you're asking, what does 10th Mountain Apparel sell? Well, good question. All kinds of great stuff. Auto medals, clocks, dog tags, hats, hoodies, knives, license plates, man cave stuff. And you're like, man cave stuff? Well, you just have to go over and check it out. Mugs, shorts, signs, knives, t-shirts, and the list continues to grow. Every time I'm on their site, I see there's new stuff being added all of the time. So if you want to check that out, head on over to Mountain Up by going to changeyourpov.com/Mountain Up. And while you're there, they've been so gracious enough for the listeners of Change Your POV Podcast to provide us with our special promo code. So at checkout, just type in the code GOOD10, GOOD10, for 10% off your total purchase. So thanks, Mountain Up, for all that you do, and I do appreciate that. It's a veteran-owned, veteran-operated business down in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you very much. Julie, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know, Bennett and I are in the throes of what we're calling our 60-day WellFit Challenge. Both of us are veterans. He is a Marine and Army veteran, and I am an Army veteran. And so, you know, exercise and working out and staying in shape and being healthy and taking PT tests and all that good stuff is not new to us.
Right.
But then we get out of the military and some amazing things happen, like binging Netflix shows and sitting on the couch a lot and not eating the best, and we're not as active as we used to be. And next, you know, we look in the mirror and neither one of us happy with what we see. So we decided to put together this program, and we did our 30-day challenge, just the two of us, and recorded everything and displayed it all on the website and the podcast, and had some pretty significant results, and we enjoyed ourselves a lot, and it was fun going through this life-changing experience with an accountability partner, and we wanted to share that with some, whoever else wanted to participate in our 60 days. So we've got myself and Bennett and a few other guys that are doing the 60-day challenge, and throughout the 60-day challenge, we wanted to bring on people that are more knowledgeable in the area of health and fitness than we are, and just get some different takes on, how to stay fit, how to eat clean, and different experiences that you folks have. So I'm told that you are a marathoner, a youth therapist. Your husband's on the SWAT team, also prior service, and like I said before we started recording, you are an all-around badass, is what I've been told. So,
Thanks.
so welcome. I told Dana, I said, Dana, anyone that is a self-proclaimed or not self-proclaimed, but anyone that is titled a badass is more than welcome on the show anytime.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. So how long have you been a marathon runner?
My first marathon was in 2012. So I'm training currently for another marathon next month, which will be my 7th marathon.
Oh, wow. Have they all been here in the Boston, or do you go to the all around, or?
I've been to Maine twice, and I've done the twice Boston Marathon in Massachusetts, and then the rest have been in New Hampshire.
Wow. So what is it about running a marathon that is, I mean, it can't be a whole lot of fun. It's grueling. It's painful. I mean, I've seen these faces of these people that finish, and they are not looking happy at all.
Yeah, it is quite a physical and mental challenge. I think that that's what brings me back is that it's not, I'm at the point where it's not, can I run a marathon? It's how fast can I run a marathon? It's, trying to improve myself. It's, just taking on a different course, different, challenge of the, the race itself. And I would say that actually race day is the best part. It's the fun, it's the crowds, you have the cheers. The training is really the hard part because, I have to wake up at 4:15 in the morning to sneak my runs in. And when it's dark out and you're by yourself, that can be a whole lot of suck, I'll tell you. Yeah. But you think, it's the miles and miles and miles you put ahead of time in and the months of the training for that day. And then on that day, I just try to just go out and have a blast and, try to run the best time I can. And I love it. It's hard and it's challenging, but I really love it.
That's amazing. So 7 marathons. What's your personal best so far?
So right now I'm at 3 hours and 49 minutes. However, I'm really trying to qualify for Boston at my next marathon. So I'm aiming for about a 3:38, and I am right on track. My runs have been awesome. I've improved a lot in the last year and a half since my last race. So I hired a running coach, and he's phenomenal. And I have just been logging in those miles and crushing every run. Not every run, but almost all of them, and feeling really confident. So I'm excited.
That's cool. Yeah, that's amazing. And so how did you get into marathon running? Was it just something you woke up one day and said, I think I'm going to step it up a little bit and run a marathon? Right.
No, not at all. I actually hated running for most of my life. And then it started by after I had my children, I really wanted to shake off some of the post-baby weight. And we had a dog, and I took her just kind of walking in the trails, and walking turned into running. And I started to get a little bit better and did more running than I did walking, and just kind of fell in love with the whole movement of my body and seeing my body get stronger, and seeing that post children, I was in better, stronger shape than I was before. And then I'm a naturally bit of a competitive person, and I found the race scene and started with a 5-mile race and turned into a 10K, which is 6.2 miles. And then actually my first marathon, after my half marathon, it was the chief of police in the town over from where I live was shot in an awful situation on call. And 3 other officers were shot and wounded. And I wanted to raise money for the Officer Down Memorial organization, and decided that running a marathon and raising funds for that organization, that was my motivation. So doing some charity running for them. And that really pushed me through. And just with my husband being at that call, and that was my inspiration. So it turned it into my love of running, and then using a really important cause to try a difficult challenge.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is your schedule like? If you say you're training for a marathon now, mm-hmm. Yep. What does a typical, day, week, month look like in the life of Julie as she's preparing for a marathon?
A lot of crazy. I wake up almost every morning at 4:15 in the morning, and I have all my running clothes set up the night before, And I majority of my runs are in the dark, but I have all kinds of cool weapons on me. No, I'm just kidding. I have no, I have like pepper spray, and I have all. I live in a really safe, great town, and I run very responsibly near like houses and neighborhoods. But I log in anywhere from 6 to 8 miles before work, and I'm home by like 6 o'clock in the morning. And then on the weekends, I'll do my long runs, which can be 16, 18, 20-mile runs. I wake up around 5:30 or 6 in the morning. I try to get most of my training done when my family's sleeping, just so that I can be available for them when the daylight hits. So
Wow. So are you is the goal to clock a certain number of miles per week as you're training up for this?
Yep. You definitely want to start gradually. You don't just go out and run 20 miles. The start of my training is, pretty gradual, maybe, 20, 25 miles a week. And then, it increases as the training goes on. So you increase your miles, you increase the intensity. But as you do that, you also pull back and take a week kind of down week. And that's why I hired a running coach, because I can be a little bit type A and do too much and want to, do it like a little too perfect. And he actually will hold me back and say, tomorrow I just want you to sleep in, or, this week I want you to kind of pull back on the pace. So that's been really helpful for me, is to have somebody just kind of helping guide me. So
Yeah, that's cool. So it's important, no matter how experienced we are, it's always good and nice to have, somebody in our corner, somebody that, a lot of people try to take on things like this in their life themselves, right? They're going to do it themselves. They're going to lose weight themselves. They're going to get in better shape themselves. They're going to, eat better themselves. And then they fail and they wonder why. And it's, and I've talked to a lot of people about it. And you look at, NFL players, or professional hockey players, or professional baseball players. They all have coaches. They all have, people on their team that are hired, specifically trainers and et cetera. So no matter how good or how top of the game you are, you should always have somebody that you can turn to and look to for guidance and help guide and direct you. So how long have you had this trainer of yours?
So I started working with him this past April. And so I've actually been training for next month's marathon since April. So that'll be about 6 months that I'm putting in to run the best race I can. And, it's really good that I started a while ago, because like we had talked about, it's gradual. And you mentioned about, people trying to take on these big goals. And I think the important thing is that it's not a quick fix. It's not the next day you're going to wake up and run 10 miles or 5 miles, or you're going to lose 20 pounds in a week. Those kind of quick fixes are not really, they're not healthy, and they're not really, I don't think they work well, or they're going to get you injured, or maybe get you sick, or so I think it's really important to have a plan and to follow it. And the coach is only one of my accountabilities. I have there's a run club, Exeter Run Club, that I know Dana's a part of as well. And, they're my people. And I actually have a few friends that'll meet up with me at, 4:35 in the morning. And if I know they're out there, I'm not going to roll over and hit the snooze button. Like I made a commitment to them, and they made a commitment to me. And so, we plan those out like a week in advance. So yeah, having people on your team, it's really helpful for reaching that end goal.
Right. Yeah. And the guys that we've got going through this challenge with us, they've got a lot of weight they want to lose, and they want to get into better shape and eat better and eat cleaner. And they've been wanting to get into this better shape for quite some time now. And now all of a sudden they're doing this program with us, and it gives them a reason. It gives them a purpose, and they attack this challenge. The first week, it was amazing to watch these guys. They attacked it with such vigor, to the point where it was like I had to tell them, like, hey, you need to pull it back a little bit.
Yeah.
You're trying to accomplish a 60-day program in 1 week, because they're just so excited about they're finally doing something, finally changing their lives and doing something they've always wanted to do, and they've never been able to kind of get off the couch and do it. So what would you recommend to people that are just starting out and they're just overzealous, I guess is the best way to describe it, in terms of, it didn't take, overnight to get into this unhealthy shape. It's not going to be overnight to get into a better shape, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you had years of unhealthy eating or, unhealthy patterns, it definitely, you want to give your body a little bit of, you don't want to shock it from like, completely, revamping everything. I mean, my advice is like, the excitement and motivation, that is a huge, it's a huge, like for success. I mean, sometimes people don't have that motivation to get started. But it's kind of like any new relationship or any new adventure. We have a lot of excitement and energy, and we can tend to stay there for a little while. I think the real challenge is sustaining that, the endurance for it. So you don't want to totally burn yourself out. So, I mean, eating healthy, it's exciting to go to the food store and buy all those new foods. But to me, the challenge is, well, what happens when 2 or 3 weeks later you're invited out to, like a pub run or like when the social things come up, you just want to make sure that you have a plan in place and sticking to your values. And then at the same time, be kind to yourself. If you're going to be so hardcore, it's not going to last. If you're so strict, you're going to start to lose that steam eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I've experienced this myself. When I started this program, we decided to go with a paleo diet and eat clean. And it was my first experience with the paleo diet. And I have a hard time using the word diet because it was more of a lifestyle change than an actual diet. Because I've been on quote unquote diets before.
Right.
And to me, diets end, they start, they end, they have an end date. And so I was talking to, my family about, eating paleo and the people that I work with, and I'm eating paleo. And of course, everybody considers it a diet. But so how do you, talk to me about diet. So like you said, you've got the self-discipline that you want to stay on track with. You've got a regime, a plan. You don't want to spoil it. And now you got these social events. So you don't want to be standoffish. You don't want to be a prude. You don't want to make other people feel bad or guilty that they're eating whatever they're eating. How do you go about kind of politely saying, I'll go hang out with you, or you're there already and somebody offers you some, I don't know, the juiciest.
The bread.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, so
the bread.
what do you say to them? Do you just tell them you're training and they just, they just move on, or what?
It's such a great question because, like you, I think about eating and food as a lifestyle, and it not being like a death sentence. It's like feeding and nourishing my body so that I can, be the strongest runner I can, or have the most energy for my job I can, or set a good example. So I look at that, how it encompasses my whole life. And I'm constantly, we're all constantly like, faced with temptations and being invitations out to eat. Or for me, I work in a school, so the teacher's room is like always got all kinds of snacks and treats. So I think one is just feeling really confident in what you're doing and what your choices are, and letting go of what other people are thinking about you, because I think people are more uncomfortable when you're eating really healthy or in a certain way when they're not, because it must bring up their own insecurities. So, it's kind of like you worry that they're judging you, but really they're maybe having the like negative thoughts about themselves, possibly. So I think of it more as, this is who I am. I'm comfortable with that. And, if I get invited out for dinner, or if they're saying, oh, hey, where do you want to go? I might just suggest a place to go where there's something I'm comfortable eating, or looking at the menu ahead of time before I go and saying, okay, they have like a really great steak or a salmon there that I can order, instead of maybe just going to like a place that's primarily like, let's say, Italian. But I think that at every restaurant, there's something you can find. It's really, I don't ever feel like I don't belong or I can't be. And if people I get comments a lot about, well, you run so you can eat whatever you want, or you're in such great shape, or you look great. And I say to them, well, I work really hard at it. And thank you for the compliment. And yes, I run a lot, but there are a lot of runners that, wish that they could change, the way they look or be more maybe at a different race weight. So it's a combination. But I basically say, I work really hard at this, and it's a choice I make every day. And do I splurge? Absolutely. And I love wine, red wine. I mean, it's that's almost like a nightly thing. I'll have a glass, and I go out with my husband and we enjoy. So you have to do those things. But, the majority of the time I plan ahead and I pack healthy snacks, and I don't order out, and I don't buy food in the car. Like, I come prepared. So I think I don't ever as much feel anymore that it's a stressful thing. I just think about it's just kind of how I am.
Mm. So talk to me about your diet. What's a typical type of diet that you would eat? Let's say, is your diet different when you're training versus not training?
Yes. But I don't eat as much as the paleo, lifestyle. I kind of dabbled in the no sugar, no grain for a while, trying to do more of the fat adapted. So eating, really healthy fats and lower on the carbohydrates. However, when I'm in more the midst of my training, I find that that doesn't work as well for me as far as being able to have the endurance that I need for especially my long runs. So, but instead of substituting carbohydrates with pasta or bread, I'll eat like a sweet potato the night before I have a big run. Or, there's things like Ezekiel bread that might have, healthier grains instead of just, the other ingredients. I'm a big person of eating more whole foods that have the least amount of packaging as possible. So, and I try to, my husband is super healthy and he loves running and mountain biking. And so I'm really fortunate to have a partner who, believes in those same kind of, those values. That's really helpful. But a typical eating is, I have, 2 eggs, and maybe some turkey bacon for breakfast. And I have a salad with protein for lunch. And I make a lot of, I bake and cook ahead a lot with, nuts and fruits. And dinner is I try to do proteins and have a glass of wine. And so, that's typical, is just real food like you had mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird is once we started this paleo diet and we got off the grains and the breads and the all the carbs, I noticed that, and I started eating real food, fruits, vegetables, and protein. I noticed that there was a shift in almost my taste buds. Things were tasting different to me.
More potent, right?
Yeah, and foods that I didn't really care for before, I really started to enjoy. And I started. It was weird. It probably took a few weeks actually to kind of get to that point, but. Now I go into the grocery store, and before I used to walk down, the
middle aisle.
Yeah, the cookie aisle, or the, that one section of the store where it's got all the, the breads and the cookies and the pastries and everything. And I used to, salivate like Pavlov's dog, right?
Yeah.
And now I go into like the produce section and I see like, these fresh carrots and broccoli, and it's having the same effect because my body is now getting used to craving the nourishment that I'm giving it. And aside from losing weight, I think losing weight is really more of a lot of people make that a goal, but really if you're doing it right, losing weight is just a side effect.
Yeah.
It's the extra energy that I have now. I don't have that brain fog or that sluggish afternoons that I used to have before. And I mean, just so many different things in my body. I just feel so much better and energized by eating this diet, and that's why I have a hard time calling it a diet, because I'm not ever planning on ending this diet. So it's a lifestyle change.
That's wonderful.
So my question to you is, all right, so you mentioned snacks, and I love this topic because it's one of the things that kind of helped me transition from my previous lifestyle to my current lifestyle, because yes, I would plan ahead, but what was weird is when you cut out all the carbs and the breads and all of that stuff, even though I was eating more, I found that I was getting hungry sooner than I expected. So I would eat breakfast and I would go to work, and I'd bring my lunch with me, but come 9 o'clock or 9:30, I was starving. So I would end up eat my lunch early. And then by 2:30, I was starving. So I started to learn these different tricks about snacks. And so I would, like, personally, I would bring like a hard-boiled egg and eat that in between. And that was satiating enough to hold me over to lunch. Or I would have like a bag of dates. Or so I had to do a lot of research about that, believe it or not, because my idea of a snack would have been like a Snickers bar or something like that. And so I had to change the types of snacks that I was eating. So what type of snacks, like you mentioned, bringing them in the car and having them with you and kind of being prepared. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mean, I even have a drawer in my office of just like if I need something. And I think an important thing too is and listening to you share and talk and is that you haven't mentioned calories or fat or anything. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this kind of lifestyle of eating is that your body really will tell you when it needs to eat. It's not, you don't have to worry about counting, because those type of diets that we had mentioned, that's what it became when I did those different types, was like, it was so consuming and it was counting this, but 100 calories of almonds is very different than 100 calories of pretzels. So it was very liberating for me to get away from the calorie counting and the this counting and just focus on what is a good healthy choice, and then trusting that my body will will tell me when I need more. So I'm just saying that because when I say I bring snacks and it's in my drawer, I don't always need them. They're there for when I feel like I do, and then I feel prepared. So I'm a big dates person too. I actually make my own energy bars. That really is like 3 or 4 ingredients. You take dates as your base, and you can add in some chia seeds, some apricots, some craisins, whatever, and you put that in a blender and you mash it together and you put it in the fridge. And so before a run or after a run, that's what I'll have, and that's like been really great for me. If you don't want to make your own, there's awesome stuff out there, products like RX bars and Lara bars, that if you look at the ingredients, and how I said I'm not a huge like into packages, but if you the least ingredients the better, and those have like 4 or 5, and it's all ingredients you can pronounce, and they're fruits and like natural sugars. I like nuts, almonds, and cashews. And I actually just bought a book called Run Fast, Eat Slow. It's co-written by Shalane Flanagan, who is she's an Olympic marathoner, and it's an amazing book that is all real foods. And I have been having a blast in the kitchen, not even too complicated. Been making things called superhero muffins, and it has zucchini and carrots and butter, and it's got coconut oil. And I'll make like batches of those, and then I freeze them and grab one, and that'll be my mid-morning snack. I'll have I like I'm trying to think. I bring all kinds of stuff. I like Siggy's yogurt, which is very, very low in sugar, and it's delicious. And like I said, I'm not fully no carbs, no sugar. I try to control it. But that has 15 grams of protein for a cup of that. And yogurts tend to have a lot of sugar in a small little cup. And Siggy's is just amazing and delicious and very filling. So those are the kind of things that I put in to snack on.
Yeah.
I love avocados are like a gift. If you just open up an avocado and put a little salt and pepper in, it's so creamy, and that will absolutely last me for hours. So.
Yeah. So I about 4 weeks ago, I finally realized what I'm looking for when I'm shopping for avocados, because I had no idea. Like, I thought an avocado was an avocado. Like, I'd had guacamole before and all that, but I used to buy it already pre-made or whatever. And so I'd go and buy these avocados, and I'd come home, and they'd either be completely like already rotten because they were so ripe, or they were like rock solid and I couldn't cut into them. I'm just like, what the hell is going on? So I finally figured out the sweet spot of an avocado in terms of its ripeness, and now I can actually go through and pick up these avocados and know, okay, this one will be ripe in 3 days, this will be ripe in 4 days. So I buy avocados at different degrees
stages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because same thing. I find that I like to get creative with these new foods that I'm experiencing, and it's a lot of people, they ask how my diet's going, and the thing about it is people have the idea of losing weight as a matter of eating less and exercising more, right?
Right.
And to me, that's really wasn't it. It was exercising moderate exercise, but doing it often, just keep moving and eating clean. And that resulted in weight loss for us. And that's really the secret sauce. And it's not about, counting calories. Cause I did that too. And how
So
like,
exhausting.
oh my God, I did it for a week and then I was like, forget it. I'm done. This
Yeah.
is just non-sustainable. So, finding just incredible ingredients. Like I didn't even know there was such thing as Himalayan salt. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
right,
like,
right.
and it's this different things that you can buy. The substitute, it's called upgrade, right? Upgrade the things that you're used to. And it has more minerals and more. It's just very cool. So I would really love if you are up for it. I would love that recipe of your homemade snack bar.
Sure.
And we can put it in the show notes of this episode, and we can even add it to our website. And because Ben and I, as we were making our own recipes, we were actually putting them together on the website, and I'll send you
That's
the link to
awesome.
it so you can see what we're making. But
Sure.
so let's talk about. You mentioned before we started recording that you were actually at the 2013, right? The marathon bombings in Boston,
Yes.
Massachusetts, and so to give you a little bit of a background on me, I served in Iraq from 2004 to 2005. And we were in Baghdad, Iraq, and our job, our primary mission was counter IED, and that's improvised explosive devices. And so our job was to essentially, find and clear roadside bombs and things like that. And our company, in the year we were there, had over 2,300 documented forms of enemy contact, and most of those were IEDs. And actually lost two of my soldiers, one to an IED and one to a sniper while we were there. My best friend lost both of his legs to an IED. And it was just a tremendous experience. And so I totally know, I've seen firsthand the carnage that results from improvised explosive devices. And the day that the bombing happened, I was at home, and it was all over the news, and they showed footage of it, and some of the carnage, and everyone was completely taken by surprise and completely shocked, and it brought me back immediately. It brought me back to the streets of Baghdad, and when I was in Baghdad, like, it was one of those things where you knew that it was. You knew that it was going to happen. It wasn't a matter of if, it was when and how bad. And it just was something that we knew we signed up for, and it was something we, I guess, learned to live with. But then you come back home and you have this false sense of safety and being untouchable, and this was really the first experience. I mean, people have been watching the war in Iraq and Afghanistan on news for over a decade at this point. But this is the first time it's really touched home to that personal level. So could you talk with us a little bit about the experience that day?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing more about your experience too. I think, first of all, this podcast is amazing to bring these issues, for other people to hear, especially I think other veterans and people currently serving, and even for our police officers and firefighters and first responders, because being married to a police officer and SWAT, member, I know the importance of talking about these issues, and and just what it must be like to carry also the experiences with you afterwards too.
Mm-hmm.
So I really respect you and all the soldiers and veterans, and thank you for your service too. I think it's really important. So yeah, I mean, I was there. So you want to know about kind of what my experience was when I was there that day?
Yeah.
So I was actually running for Sandy Hook, which is the elementary school where that awful atrocity happened in Newtown, Connecticut. Being a guidance counselor and working with elementary students and having 2 children myself, like that, I mean, it shook the whole world when those shootings happened with those children. So I had decided to raise money for that foundation, and I was wearing the Sandy Hook colors and a shirt, and leaving the starting line. Here I was, running for a cause against violence and thinking about all those children and teachers and just wanting to bring, more awareness and peace. And so when, towards the end of the race that happened, it was just that, I think, such I don't even know how to put into words, just the beginning and the end of these awful things. So I was stopped around mile 25.8. So I was about a quarter mile from the finish line. And I was at the point where the runners were getting more put into a corral. We were about to go under a tunnel. And so we had most of the street to run, but right around the point we were starting to get squished together to get, towards the turn to the end. And it was like everything just was I had headphones in and I was listening to music, but everybody just abruptly stopped. And you couldn't really move well because it was, hundreds of people running inside, around you. And within minutes, at first we thought maybe someone had a heart attack or, we heard some shouting about, police officers pushing us back. And then, within minutes it was, a swarm of helicopters and emergency vehicles and people just getting really upset and really elevated. We soon heard that, there was some explosions at the finish line. People were running the opposite way. All I knew was that I needed to get out of where I was because I was concerned that there might be emergency vehicles trying to push through us and past us. So people were just kind of, scattering around. And I didn't have a cell phone or food or water. I had run almost a full marathon, almost 26 miles. And so I was, really tired and my body was starting to shut down. And so, and people were trying to get through to their loved ones. My sister was supposed to be at the finish line. She was waiting for me there. I had some other friends and family around. My husband and children were luckily at home. Thank goodness. We had gone back and forth about that the day before. But so I actually borrowed somebody's phone, and all the because of the emergency, they shut down all the phone lines, the power lines, I guess, so that I'm assuming that's so that further bombs couldn't be detonated through a cell phone. But I was able to get in touch through text to my husband, but we got cut off. So I actually met a man who was kind of talking to me, and he invited me to walk with him about 2.5 miles to a restaurant where he was meeting a friend. And it was there inside the restaurant that I saw all of the carnage and blood and the smoke. And we heard a second explosion actually on our walk, but it was actually, I think the bomb squad had detonated another bomb safely, but so we didn't know what was going on. We literally thought the city was under attack. And but when you're depleted of like fuel and hydration, and you're kind of coming to terms that with part of me was like, so wait, I'm not going to finish. Like totally irrational thinking. Worried about my sister. Where is she? I can't get in touch with anyone. And I pretty much was like dissociating. I think I was very calm, and I kept thinking, what would my husband tell me to do? And then I kind of felt this pressure. Well, I'm a mental health professional. I work with children. I work with trauma victims. Like I know what's happening. I know what I need to do. So I almost was like talking to myself, outside myself, being like, well, you don't want to panic and you don't want to freak out, and you need to find a way to escape. And what do you need to do to be safe? And, and this is a stranger that you're walking with, but he's a lot safer than walking towards the finish line, and so I was able to call my husband on a phone in the restaurant, and he told me to go home with this guy whose name was Joe. And Joe was running the marathon too. I mean, and his family was at home, and he and his friend actually drove me back to his house, and my husband met me there. And then we learned more. So, I have to say I'm very, very fortunate. I was not at the actual finish line. I did not see the carnage there. I found out later my sister got stuck under a subway underground. So, she wasn't there. So I had found that out before. I wouldn't leave the city until I knew that, that she was okay. So it was I was oddly calm. But then I'll tell you, probably the next day I was a hot mess. I couldn't load my dishwasher without crying. I cried, I think, for a week straight. It all just kind of coming to terms, learning about the people who died, the little boy, Martin Richard, learning about, the people who's lost limbs, and then the anger, and I mean, the range of emotions, it was so intense. And it took me a long time, and I'm not shy at all to admit that I called a therapist, and I started taking some medication to help me sleep at night for a little while. It was very short term, intervention, but I knew well enough that I'm not okay, and I need to get my own sense of security and safety back. I was running the Boston Marathon, and thinking that running for this amazing cause, and I thought that sense of security, what you had said, I'm fine, I'm safe. This is Boston, come on. So it kind of shakes you up a little bit, thinking, well, maybe I'm not so safe, and the other thing was I was totally sucking my race, like bad. I bonked. It was only my second marathon. I didn't know what I was really doing. I wasn't training. And I was so grateful that I was suffering, because I had to walk a bit. And I was, like I said, probably about 3 minutes from the finish line. And because I was thinking of all those times I had to stop or stretch or drink a little more water. And thank God I didn't finish. And I was, so many emotions.
Yeah.
It was really intense.
Yeah, it's amazing what the power of what if will do.
Yeah.
I know firsthand. I mean, it's been 12 years since I redeployed from Iraq, and it's still to this day, I run the what if scenarios in my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if we were a little bit earlier? What if we were a little bit later? What if we were more prepared? What if? And you can just literally what if yourself to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's you don't never get used to it. It's not something that, I guess it gets, I won't say easier, but with time, things, I don't know. It's, you learn to come to terms with it and learn to live with it and accept it, but it doesn't mean it goes away.
Right. And, just to add to as well with the what if is, I mentioned you before we started the interview that my husband, who's on the SWAT team, his SWAT team was activated into Watertown. So the bombings happened on Monday, and they were searching for the second suspect. And Friday, SWAT teams and police, they had figured out where they were in Watertown, and they put the entire city on lockdown. And the police and first responders were going around knocking on doors, telling people to stay in their basements. And so my husband's team got activated, and he texted me. He said, I have to head in. And this was 4 days after, with what I had experienced. And I know what he does, and I know his job, but I was like, what if he's next? Because a police officer already got shot and died at MIT. And you had all these other people. I mean, these guys were dangerous. And I was so, I didn't have the resilience or the skills to really trust him that he was going to be okay that time. And I felt just so, yeah. So luckily that night, he was, with his team and the other teams there, they did capture him, and we know the story from there. But
yeah. And it's 4 days afterwards, and you're still living it, with your husband still involved with it. And
he's racing into Boston while everybody else is locked down, racing out. And I know that's what soldiers and first responders, that's what they do. And it's really important to remember that even if you see the pictures of the Boston Marathon, when the explosions happened, you see those police officers running right into it, and everybody's running out. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that takes so much bravery, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it's what I like to call it. Because I got home from Iraq and somebody asked me, how I was able to do that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think the term that was used was rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
And the reality is, no one in the military ever rises to the occasion in combat. You only drop to your level of training.
Mm-hmm.
And because when everything's going down, there is no time to think. You literally you just react,
Yeah. Yep.
and you react based off of the training that you're given. And I think that I mean, I've never been a police officer, but I can imagine the same is true for police officers and first responders too, as everyone just defaults to their training.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
that's amazing. And your husband's still serving, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Awesome. Tell him thank you
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing, man. There was a point where I did a year in Iraq. I came home. I got out of the army. I took off my uniform for the last time, but the police officers and responders nowadays, they're faced with a much deeper threat
Yes.
than I think that law enforcement were even 10 or 15 years ago, and it's the Sandy Hooks, it's the it's the Boston Marathon, it's the all these just unthinkable things. 15, 20 years ago, you would never have thought about going to a movie theater and watching a movie, or you know what I mean. And that kind of brings me to my next. So you're a guidance counselor at a school. What age group?
I work with 3rd through 6th graders, so between 8 and 12-year-olds.
And so, how long have you been doing that?
I'm in my 12th year.
Wow. Now, have you noticed any changes amongst our youth in that period of time in terms of I don't know, bullying? I mean, bullying is a big thing, and then there's the whole social media kind of element. So what's your experience there?
So I would say the number one referral, or of the probably the majority of the students I work with, it's actually anxiety, and it speaks a lot to just what we as adults, I think, feel in the the elevation of anxiety, from what we're exposed to, or the things that have come closer to home, and I think it's that our safety and security, and with social media, the constant exposure to these, big events and the school shootings and all those things, I think when adults start to feel unsafe, or they're more anxious, when they're worried about their kids, playing in the neighborhood, because some sexual predator is going to come, and you start to it trickles down to our children. And I definitely and I also think with the change of the Common Core standards, nationally, with the No Child Left Behind, the expectations are pretty high on our children, and they're expected to rise pretty high and to balance sports, and then you have like the social media, which is a whole separate topic. But I see a lot of children just with severe anxiety. I think as the years go on, even with the start of this school year, I have 3 different children that just can't get to school. I mean, they're like 8 and 9 years old, crying with like psychosomatic symptoms, with legit stomach. They're throwing up. Like, walking into our school is hard for some of those children. So I'm seeing a lot of increase in having children really trust and feel safe within school, safe to learn, safe to make mistakes, safe to make friends. So anxiety is an area that I've continued to have my own professional development in, and make sure that I'm really supporting students. And in addition to supporting students, it's supporting the staff, because, our teachers our staff are feeling more, maybe unsafe, or their stress level with the demands of all the things I mentioned are coming down on them. And so I wish as a whole, like society, we could all hold hands and take a deep breath and just breathe in and breathe out. And so that's definitely something. Bullying, of course, is definitely an issue. And I think there's just a lot of media exposure. We hear in the news about the child who's committed suicide because they were bullied online. And, there's the legislation, the legislation law, like all around, we need to have an anti-bullying program in every school. So there's more attention to that. I would say, though, that there's not a whole lot of bullying that I see. I see more of children that are just needing to really learn and develop their social skills. They need to learn how to make eye contact and to have meaningful conversations instead of texting and Facebooking each other, and having like play dates. My own children, I'm pretty strict about the amount of extracurricular activities that they do. I make them go on their bikes and they ride around the neighborhood and they knock on their friends' doors to play. Like, to me, it is about that. To me, is as important as getting the homework, which is important. But I think it's just like with the lack of exposure socially, I think we are sort of falling or regressing in our ability to really connect in a human level, which might elevate the other issues. So, I mean, I don't know. That's my theory.
Yeah. That's I've got a son and a daughter, and it's been tough over the years to, I don't know, to see the way that the school, I think every school district may be different, but it's just. Yeah, the social media stuff is tough. The kids getting bullied online, and things are just taken way out of proportion. And of course, then the parents got to get involved, and it's just a mess.
I know, in the school district, and I think just for parents, it's just be smart and don't, just because your fourth grader wants an iPhone because his friend has one, he doesn't have to have one. Like no, the answer is no. Like, don't just be your kid's friend. Your job is not to be their friend. Your job is to be their parent and to love them. And it's not just to make them happy. It's to provide them tools so that they can be successful and they can be competent and they can be resilient. Because I think we do a lot of, trying to help kids in anxiety. The best way to help anybody with anxiety, whether it's, a veteran or it's like, even with me, like I had my first panic attack after Boston. We went to a race and it was just everything kind of came back. And my husband was like, you don't have to run this race. Let's just go home. And I said, no. I go, give me a moment. I'm taking a deep breath. But and some people do need time. I don't mean to say like just tough it up and do it. But what I'm getting at is that as you move through the difficult times, the more you avoid, you're just prolonging it. Mm-hmm. So, you need to really be comfortable. You have to get comfortable to be uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable to tell your child no, or to put down limits, or to face your fear. And the more that you move through the discomfort, you start to be able to realize that you can handle it. You do have the skills, and now you're able to move forward.
Right. It's how even today, every time you cross the finish line of a marathon, that's not an easy thing to approach that finish line, because there's always going to be that thought in the back of your head, right? Of something like that. But you're right. You just got to do it, because to try to shelter yourself for a potential what if might happen, then essentially terrorists win, right? That's exactly the whole point of terrorism, is to force us to do things we wouldn't otherwise, out of fear, right? And so we gotta rise above it and stay above it and continue to do what we want to do in the face of fear. So
and I would say too, just one more thing, is that when you're like some people who are anxious or fearful, they want certainty. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Well, you know what? It might happen. Mm-hmm. And I tell my children in the students I work with at my school, even the ones that will say, well, what if somebody comes, can you promise that no one would ever come in with a gun? I say, you know what? I can't promise you that. But what I can say, it is very, very unlikely, and it's very, very rare that something like that will happen. And yes, we heard about it, but there are schools that thousands and thousands of schools that go through every day where they're very safe, or it's like, can you promise me that there won't ever be a bomb at the finish line? Well, gee, no, I can't promise you that, but I can tell you that, for me, it's the voice I have in my head. It's very, very unlikely that would ever happen again. And so am I going to stop running? Am I going to stop training? No, I'm going to fight harder. And I'm doing everything I can to get back to Boston and to qualify. And it actually is driven me more, is to what do I need to do to get back there, and that resilience. And it is hard. It's really hard to wake up that early. It's really hard to go for a 3-hour run, but it's also so exhilarating and so exciting that when your foot hits that finish pad, it is like I can't even explain the adrenaline and the emotion and the, oh my God, I can do anything now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. How do you define success?
Success would be, I think it's something that you've worked really hard for and that then you've accomplished. I feel like success isn't just something that comes super easy or it's a given. You know, some people have really innate talents and that's great. And, you know, but even the best athletes in the world and the athletes in the Olympics, they are training. So I think success is that when you are devoted and motivated and you put the hard work in, and then you really get to experience the high of the result.
I do have one question. It's a question I ask of all the guests at the end of the show. As you know, this podcast is called Change Your Point of View. Tell me a time when you thought of something one way, but an event or circumstance occurred that changed your point of view. What was it, and what did you learn from that experience?
I would say that probably just that, you know, I'm not good enough for that, is the negative fixed mindset of, you know, that won't be me, or I can't do that, or I can't accomplish that. You know, am I going to be a world-class marathon runner? No. But is this a reachable goal for me? Then yes. And then what do I need to do to get there? I think it's just not limiting yourself, having realistic expectations. But I think I used to definitely be a lot harder on myself, and I definitely limited myself. So my change of view, or like the way I've changed my own perception of things is that, you know, I really am capable. I've just got to, I got to put the work in though. I got to put the work in, and if I do, I have a really good chance. I'm going for my 7th marathon. This is my 4th attempt to qualify for Boston. And I really believe that I can. And if I don't do it this time, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try again. And I think that's where my perspective has changed.
That's awesome. Good for you. And I really look forward to any kind of updates that you have. And let us know if you or when you qualify, and would love to kind of follow your progress, and maybe even have you back on here and talk about how that was.
Thank you. I'd love to.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate everything that you do, and you've got one of the hardest jobs in the world, and that as a guidance counselor of our schools, that's for sure.
Thank you. I love my job. Well, it's been a huge honor to be on this podcast, and I think it's just so important and phenomenal in the work that you do, and in the voices that you speak for. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, you can find all of the show notes for this episode by heading over to changeyourpov.com/episode 103. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. And come be a part of our community over at Change Your POV Squad Facebook group, where you can interact with myself and Bennett and all the other guests on the show. You can also check out everything that Bennett and I are doing over at our regular Facebook page at Change Your POV. All right, folks, until next time.
Thanks for listening to Change Your POV podcast with Eddie Lazary. Check out more content by going to changeyourpov.com. And remember, your ability and willingness to change your point of view will open doors of opportunity.